All right, everyone. We are here today without visual because my camera decided to be stupid.
I think this is the fourth time we've recorded an intro.
We tried to start recording.
And we're a little bit early this week because we are going on vacation. So if we missed anybody's reviews, we'll try to get them on our next podcast.
Yep. So we do have a couple of interviews reviews that we can go for.
All right, let's go. Kale Cream. Don't lie, Kurai. We all know you're going to die.
Yeah, that's the premise of the story. Of course he's gonna die. I've gone over this many times.
Don't make promises you can't keep, man. Come on, Kurai.
But he's been taking lessons from Spider-Man because those are the best kind of promises to make, man.
Gosh.
Yeah. They put the first Amazing Spider-Man on Netflix. They didn't put the second one for some reason. I was kind of
that's the one a lot of people hate.
Yeah, that's probably. I don't know if that one or Spider-Man 3.
Or they want people to spend money renting it because they saw the first one. That's usually what they do.
I don't know, because I don't know if this Amazing Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire was more hated.
Spider-Man 3 is more hated, but at this point it's iconic. So, and if I'm being honest, I still haven't seen the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I've seen behind the scenes, but when they were coming out, I was still so scarred from Spider-Man 3 that I could not handle it. So I know they're great. I love Andrew Garfield. He is a sweetie pie. I haven't had the chance, so I'll check him out eventually.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kale Cream.
Thank you for the review.
Light Hero Kaiser. Most interesting, great chapter, mate. Can't wait for more. Not much to say because Kaito is training. Kaito, yelling from another room. Stop moving and let me hit you. Toga, why would I? Light, keep it down. Blade Hero Light signing out.
My question there is why is Kaito training with Toga? Does she know that this is training? Is my question. Does she know that?
So the first time I read this, I definitely thought it was Togeda, and I was like, oh, Togeda.
Well, I mean, in that case, you're just never gonna hit him.
Yeah, but it's Toga, so
okay. Yeah, that's a little concerning, man.
Hope you're all right, man. Don't get murdered over here. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Light Hero Kaiser. Joe Clone. Woo! I think we needed this chapter for all the excitement of the last one.
Yeah, I tried to get I think I've gotten better about spacing out the actions and letting the chapters that let people breathe a little bit.
Yeah, it gets a little heavy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next arc is Kurai accepting himself. Sounds to me like that's a death flag. Not for during or even after this new arc, but maybe soon after. That's my prediction. See you next chapter.
I mean, I think that's the first prediction we've gotten for someone for Kurai dying.
No, it's not.
No?
They're always thinking he's gonna die. That's literally, we get somebody saying that almost every other chapter review we do.
Do we?
Yes.
Oh. Well, that shows you guys how good my memory is. I don't remember too many of them.
Well, I mean, when you're prophesying, if you just say the near future, I mean, any of those could be right because it's going to be in the future unless time travel is involved. I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah.
All right, Joe
I feel like I'm getting more confused trying to think about this.
Thank you, Joe Clone.
Thank you for the review.
We'll see about that, man.
Yeah.
All right, and last but not least, Silly Kita. First time? I guess Mina's been showing Kurai some westerns. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, if I'm not mistaken, Liam Neeson.
Featuring Liam Neeson.
Oh, featuring, well...
I mean, that's just how I assumed it was read.
Oh, it never even occurred to me. You can tell I'm used to seeing albums featuring Toby Mac.
Well, yeah, when they say featuring, it's just usually feet.
Yeah.
That's how it's spelled, but you read it as featuring.
People straight up say feet.
Well,
okay.
That's not correct.
Whatever. All right. Why I want to see the film. Though the line is spoken by James Franco. Gag, hurl. Yeah, unfortunately, he's made some bad choices. Which kind of stinks because I definitely had a mini crush on him as a kid. All right. In any case, it's a great line / meme, and definitely not one that I would have expected to see in an anime-inspired story. Oh, you never know what kind of strange references this guy's gonna make. There's
unapologetically, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that film. I've seen the meme so many times. I think the first time I saw it was like it was like like they put Captain Rex's helmet like over his face, and like it's like Cody or another clone who's just like, this mission is this like Commander Skywalker's mission plan is suicide, and Rex just turns to him and is like, first time.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it's such a meme at this point.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that movie at some point. It's been a while. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm honestly surprised that we haven't had an over 9,000 joke in here yet, but I think I have the unexpectedness of this joke. I like the unexpectedness of this joke much better. Sorry, that was kind of a long tangent to go on about a quick laugh, but I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It's good. See, it's worth it. Yeah. Adding those silly little anecdotes and
they make me laugh.
Eggs.
They make me laugh, and for me, that's a good enough reason to put it in.
No,
but I'm glad somebody else enjoys it.
Yeah, I kind of thought that we would see Kurai talk to Endeavor in this chapter, given some of your comments toward the end of your last podcast. But it wound up being more involved than I expected it to be. If I had expected them to meet at all, nothing more than Kurai telling him to piss off. But this, to me at least, is a mark of how far this character has come. Him being willing to set aside his grudge, even if just enough to work with Endeavor, because the current stakes can only allow for so much animosity between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either that, or he's just 110% done with everything right now and just doesn't feel like fighting anybody, even if it's someone he really despises.
Might be a bit of both in there, yeah.
One thing I was kind of taken aback by was the fact that he doesn't remember any of his friends' phone numbers, especially Mina's. With all the other stuff that he does and memorizes because of his upbringing, I would think that memorizing phone numbers would be up there for him, since he'd need to know how to call his family if he ever got separated from them and he didn't have his own phone.
He definitely has his family members' phone numbers memorized off the top of his head. Like, I don't know, maybe this is just a little bit of me bleeding into it, but like I used to be really good. Like I could name off like 20 phone numbers off the top of my head, like when I was
when we were kids, you had to, because not that many people had cell phones.
Well, I didn't have a phone as a kid.
Yeah, well, most of us didn't.
I don't know. I feel like I've grown up with a lot. I feel like I've grown up with a fair number of people who like they had like cell phones like as soon as they were available to kids, and I definitely didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think at least here in Albuquerque, most people still operated off of landlines. Like, it wasn't super common for people to have cell phones for quite a while.
Okay.
And so,
maybe that was just maybe just the thing
maybe
that
it's
from where I was
were
looking.
all over the place.
Yeah,
with the Air Force, Cause, but I mean, that's the thing though, especially with our generation that's in this younger generation, I don't know a whole lot of people who actually memorize cell phones numbers anymore. And yes, I get it with the police thing, like, yeah, he would have to have some numbers memorized, but I think he and Mina have kind of had a busy life since they started dating, and I don't think that it probably hasn't even occurred to them, because
he's definitely going to be memorizing phone numbers after this.
From here on out. But for me, I'm just like, man, I know your number, and I know my grandparents' numbers, and that's about it. But growing up, I had all my friends' numbers memorized. So
yeah, I know your number, my parents, and my brother's numbers.
Yeah, so
I think
it's like,
that's it.
Usually, I think just with the culture we're in, with the technology, it's pretty uncommon, even when people have those street smarts, and sometimes you just got so much going on, you just don't have the energy. But yeah, definitely get where you're coming from, Silikita. But yeah, that's cool if you memorize numbers still. I don't know.
Honestly, I didn't. I mean, good on you for noticing that. I honestly didn't really think about that.
Oh, it was frustrating this summer because my students would always be like, "Hey, can you call my parents?" I'm like, "Yeah, give me their number."
And they don't have it.
Don't know. So I'd have to get into my computer and look it up, and then there's 10 different outdated numbers, and we didn't know what it was insane. So kids definitely do not memorize numbers anymore. It's ridiculous. All right. Sorry, really long tangent there for us.
Tangents are fun, man.
Okay. I lost. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but just kind of stood out as odd to me. Yeah, I get it. I get that. Also, the media didn't eat him alive for the citywide destruction of property. I was fully expecting at least 2 or 3 of them to call him out for unnecessary and dangerous theatrics, given his prior relationship with the media at large. Wasn't it in a park, though?
It was mostly but like when he let off the big bang, like at the end of it, like buildings were shaking, windows were breaking, like stuff was getting broken.
Okay.
Imagine, like, if that had gone off on the ground, Fukuoka wouldn't exist anymore.
Okay.
But, he kept the collateral to a minimum as he could. But, yeah, stuff definitely got broken during that.
So, I guess he did well enough during his interview as part of Gang Orca's agency. Okay, so the way I see this is news agencies, they focus on what they want to focus on. Mm-hmm. And I can see how at this point in the story, some news agencies are starting to kind of question heroes. But I think for the most point, at least at this point in the story, they're still trying to pump up the new and upcoming heroes because they want to get the scoop.
They want the new All Might.
Yeah. So, and I know that further along in the story, the media starts getting a little bit more jaded with the heroes because that's what's the popular thought. But if you think about it in real life, the media only focuses on what is most convenient for them at the time. Mm-hmm. Like when the war started in Ukraine, that was all we were ever hearing about. Constantly, every day, we were hearing about where everyone was, where the explosions were, where the refugees were going.
That's still happening.
It is still happening.
But nobody on media is talking about it.
No one's talking about it anymore. And like same with a lot, like in Burma, war's going on all the time. No one talks about it. And like here in our town, we're actually almost to the 100th murder for this year.
Jeez.
And the news organizations don't even talk about murders anymore.
Because they just happen so often.
It's so frequent. And you have to actually, there's only specific media organizations that are, not popular. They're not the big ones that even cover these. And so you have to do some digging to see where it's happening. Yeah. But so basically what I mean to say is, yeah, they sometimes focus on these, but right now, the general public and the media hasn't quite shifted to the hero questioning phase yet. Yeah, we had Stain.
That'll come more now that Endeavor's #1 because everybody's gonna be watching him more and he isn't All Might.
Yeah. But I think we just had this big thing for all the new standings this day. Mm-hmm. And so they're focused on, okay, who are the new big guys? What are they like? And
Kurai just came out of left field. People knew about him because he was the commissioner's son. And yeah, he did a good thing with Gang Orca, so there was kind of some interest there. But he just put on this spectacle that just completely blew Endeavor's debut as #1 out of the water.
And also, if you are wanting views, and you're wanting likes, and you're wanting shares, you got to build up a character before you tear him down. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, if you hear about some guy on the news who did something awful, you're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And then you don't really think about it after that. And you just think, oh, it's that crazy guy that did that crazy thing. But it's a much bigger deal to tear someone down who has a good name already. Mm-hmm. So what you often see with celebrities, even if they have a sketchy history, is they'll get pumped up by the media in a bunch of good ways. Mm-hmm. And then when news starts getting slow, that's when they start finding things wrong with these characters. So it's a much bigger deal and it's more notable when they're being torn down and critiqued.
Yeah.
So I think just logically for these new news media outlets, it makes more sense to pump these heroes up. And then once everything's died down a little bit, they can start critiquing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. But
there's definitely some of that in there.
Yeah. All right.
But for me, the angle that I'm coming at, there's definitely going to be some of that, I think, later on down the line. But the way that I was coming at it was just these guys are so relieved that Endeavor doesn't have to be the #1 for the foreseeable future because Endeavor's he's gonna be #1. There's really no way around that for right now because Hawks isn't interested in being #1 and he's not as strong as Endeavor. He said as much himself and he's not interested in being #1.
Yeah, so he's not as...
So they're kind of left with this so the only person that wants to be #1 and is capable of doing it is kind of an asshole. And then here comes Kai, is just oh, this guy's young and full of hopes and dreams for the future. Let's go. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah.
And then he's also kind of nah, man, that was bad out there today. That wasn't cool. He straight up tells him, he's I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what, he's are you looking to me to say that this was all great and everything's gonna be hunky-dory from now on? No!
Yeah, so I mean, I think it definitely gives them enough to chew on. So, and you know how news organizations rehash the same thing for months and years after it happens. So they'll have plenty of time to start critiquing him. And as soon as he makes a mistake, you bet you they'll start critiquing him for all that damage.
Oh, I'm sure.
But they probably have to wait for the city.
They need some good news.
The other thing is, you don't have a whole lot to talk about until you have an audit from the city and an audit. And so, they're going to focus on the easiest little bits right now.
Subject matter.
And point. All right. So, I guess these people are just desperate for someone who's more like All Might to look up to than the new number one.
There you go.
That's
pretty
much what you said.
Yeah.
Either that or everyone is just scared of the Nomu that they don't care who took them out. I think there's a little bit of that too.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
those things are terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, we know that when there's a new big scary threat, people will jump at the first opportunity without questioning it. I mean, we experienced
COVID.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. COVID, big and scary. And so, of course, because everyone's so scared, they're immediately going to jump on the first vaccination that's approved, whether it's, whether it
should have been approved or not.
Without reading into it. And I'm not going to share my opinion on it or anything, but it's just an example of how people, when scared, will jump on the first possibility of safety. And that's just how we are. True. All right. So Tokoyami scaring Kurai as soon as he walked in was hilarious. I half expected that it was Amina who put him up to that, but I guess she probably passed out before the thought would have even occurred to her. Also, do you want me to pause there?
I mean, yeah, she might have come up with something like that. Whereas, had she been capable of, she's tired at this point.
Yeah,
she's exhausted.
I think on a less traumatic day, she absolutely would have done that.
Yeah,
he was coming home late from work, but. Yeah, I think she was just out of it. All right. Also funny to me, for some absurd reason, was how when Deku asked him about how it went at the prison, there was almost a moment of, oh, that's why he was gone last chapter. Right? They're both big deals, but that fight was something else. With the battle against the Nomu being as intense as it was, I honestly half forgot why he was off of the school campus. I probably shouldn't have laughed so much at that, but there you go. No, yeah, I feel you. I do that all the time, man. I'm like, wait, why are we here? Especially with some of the other story projects that you work on the side. I'm getting so wrapped up in whatever's going on that I'm completely losing the context. All right. Hasn't been talking to Endeavor at all because he doesn't have the extra lessons into the story. That's another thing I absolutely would not have thought to keep track of.
I mean, I kind of almost forgot about it myself. But before I start working on chapters that take place in tandem with the anime, I make sure to go and watch the anime to make sure that I'm keeping track of all these little things that would be happening otherwise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you're better at that detail stuff than a lot of us, so good for you.
Thank you.
All right. Kurai's about to die. I'm calling it right now. Things are going way too well for him, or at least headed in the direction of being well, for you not to yank the carpet out from under him / us again sometime soon. He's got all the answers that he's been looking for since his father's died. The public seems to be changing their minds about him. And of course, he's made his girlfriend a promise that we, the audience, know he will not be able to keep. If he doesn't die in Phase 4, I am 100% certain that he'll die in Phase 5, whenever that happens to be. My honest prediction is that Kurai dies before we reach the end of this year. If he doesn't, I'm going to be very embarrassed about making such a definitive prediction, but I'm confident that this will not be the case.
Man, I'm gonna enjoy watching you guys squirm.
Oh God. I hope that I've put up this review early enough for you guys to read it before you go on break. Congratulations, you made it. But either way, I hope you have a good time. Thanks,
man. I appreciate that, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all the death predictions. You're right. We're getting more death predictions this chapter.
Yeah. So sure. I started reading some of these. I was just like, man, everybody thinks he's gonna die real soon.
See, and you gave me a number today with how many chapters were out from the death.
Yep.
So I know, but I can't share. Sorry, guys.
I definitely know, but I'm not going to share.
I'm not even going to tell you if you're warm or cold here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna enjoy watching you guys. So he thinks it's gonna happen before the end of this year. I'm really gonna enjoy watching you guys sweat over whether or not that's true.
See if it's gonna be their Christmas present or not.
Oh man, that would be a really bad Christmas present.
Awful.
And I am not above that.
That would be so awful.
That's not a confirmation, by the way, that he's gonna die around Christmas.
Not.
I'm just letting you guys know. Joking. I would absolutely do that to you.
Ugh, meanie head. All right. Well, thank you, Joe Clone, Silly Kita, everybody else let's see who else, Light Hero Kaiser, and Kale Cream. Appreciate you guys. Awesome long review, Silly Kita. Good thoughts, everybody.
Yeah. I think that's it.
So
we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and let the audio chapter play now, and I'll remind you guys again that this chapter the next 3 chapters are actually a mini arc of my design. So I hope I haven't actually done that since the Gang Orca internship.
Yeah.
The internship wasn't an original idea of mine, but what happened in it was.
So this next arc is going in between
Endeavor's fight and the joint training between Class 1A and 1B.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. So,
all right. So we have that to look forward to. We will see you guys after the audio. Or hear you.
Yeah.
From the moment I reached the other side, I could not hide from the great divide. I can't turn back time, my soul was mine. Get back what I lost, no matter the cost. Is there no way home? Is there no way home?
Indomitable. Whoa. Aerie lives on campus now? Kurai nearly dropped his fork onto his breakfast in surprise. When did that happen? We only found about it yesterday when you were on your way to meet the president of evil. Mina giggled as Izuku and Ochako shared in a happy smile. She asked for you, but your boy Izuku here covered for you by saying you were off keeping the city safe. She and the others had just finished recounting the events that he had missed while on his way to and from Tartarus prison, which included a visit from the Pussycat Heroes, and the news that Aerie was now officially in the care of the school due to Aizawa being one of the only people capable of keeping her powers in check. Yeah? Kurai chuckled as he rubbed at his sore chest, his body still not completely recovered from his battle with the Shadow Nomu, even after a healing session with Recovery Girl earlier that morning. You sure you weren't born with a prophecy quirk or something? You wound up hitting pretty close to home with that. Sorry, I guess I should have said something else now that I think about it. The green-haired boy apologized. She just seemed excited at the idea of you saving someone like you saved her, so Dude, I was kidding. Kurai chuckled. I hope I can see her today, unless Mr. Aizawa wants her to stay at the teacher's dorm. She did ask for you, so I'm sure it won't be too long before she can come over, or you get invited to where she's at, Ochako chirped. Togata's going to be keeping an eye on her since he's on leave from his studies right now, so maybe he can set something up. Is it Valentine's Day yet? A familiar voice called from the door to the common space. 'Cause I got a sweetheart right here. Speak of the devil. Mina grinned as she nudged Kurai with her elbow. Togata! Izuku exclaimed as the tall senior strode into the room with a familiar small figure gripping his hand as her eyes looked around the living space. We weren't expecting you. Well, little Aerie had someone that she wanted to see, so here we are. Togata said cheerily. Go on, say hi. Hi, Kai. The little girl said shyly as Kurai stood up and moved to greet her and the older student. I heard you got in another fight. Are you okay? I'm doing a lot better now that I get to see you, he told her with a big smile while he ruffled her white hair, which had been made into a neat braid that allowed more of her face to show. I heard you'll be living from UA now. I heard you'll be living at UA from now on. How awesome is that? I was super excited because I get to stay near you and Deku and Lemillion, Aerie said happily, her shyness beginning to fade away now that she was in the presence of another friendly face. Does Aku really live here too? No, sorry, Kurai answered with a temporary grimace. However, he quickly cleared it up in favor of renewing his grin and saying, but I'll give you a way to talk to him on the computer, if Mr. Aizawa gives the okay. I'm sure he'd like to keep teaching you if you'd like that. I would like that, Aerie nodded. Learning is hard, but he's fun, so I want to keep doing it. Well, who knew the little guy had it in him? Mina snickered to her friends while the others in the common space began to draw in closer to see what was happening. Hey, Togata! Kirishima said as he bumped fists with the senior. Me and some of the guys were talking about going to hit the gym. Want to come with us? I'm sure Hikari wouldn't mind taking over for a bit with Eri, right? I wish, but I told Mr. Aizawa that I wouldn't let her out of my sight. Togato replied with a bright smile. Promise is a promise, you know? That's a real man right there. Kirishima grinned fiercely as he slammed his rock-hard fists together. Now I'm really fired up for the gym. Come on, Shoji, Ojiro. With that, he ran out the door, not bothering to see if anyone was following him. Man, he has a lot of energy, Togato said, looking a little wistful for a second as the other boys chuckled amongst themselves and made to follow the redhead after giving their own greetings to their guests. However, he simply smiled again and said, So, what do you want to do now, Eri? Seems like Hikari isn't totally 100% yet, so we should probably let him rest, okay? Pfft, you kidding me? Kurai said as he stood up straight. I'm game if she wants to play for a bit. Kurai, you should be resting! Ida interjected as he and Yayorozu approached the group. You went through an incredible ordeal yesterday, and any strenuous exercise has been advised against by Recovery Girl. I hardly think that a game of catch or hide and seek counts as no excuses. Okay, I know I haven't threatened this in a while, but I will take your legs and use them for an upgrade on my bike. Kurai shot back. Failing that, I could do with some spare parts for my arm. Yeah, lay off the guy, Mina chimed in, while Eri looked between the two parties, appearing confused as to what was happening. None of them really seemed angry, but there was a slight tension in the air that she did not completely understand. Hey, I know, Togato said to cut off any more arguing. How about a movie? You guys have any good flicks for a kid? Kurai's face immediately split into another grin as he said, I got just the thing. Be right back. With that, he spun on his heel and started to jog toward the elevators, leaving Izuku and Ochako to entertain their friends in the interim. However, he was surprised when he felt someone's hand grab him by the shirt in an attempt to restrict his movements. You better not be going what I think you're going for, Mina said in a thin tone. Oh, you know what I'm going for, he said with a cheeky smile over his shoulder. She's like 5! So? I was 4 when I first saw him. That doesn't make it okay! The elevator bell suddenly rang, admitting Asui and Jiro, who looked startled at the sight of Mina practically wrestling her boyfriend into the wall in an attempt to keep from advancing. Asui blinked once and then said, If you two are going to get up to anything weird, please do it in one of your rooms. Ribbit. This caused Jiro's face to redden and Mina to laugh a little nervously, which gave Kurai an opening. Sorry, sweetheart, he said in a low tone, though he kept the grin on his face. Then he jammed his fingers into one of Mina's ticklish spots, causing her to let out an involuntary shriek and double over, even as he crossed the hallway in a single bound, leaping over Jiro and Asui's heads and slipping between the doors just in time for them to shut behind him. As soon as they did, he hit the button that would take him to the second floor, a satisfied smile on his face. That smile grew as he heard Mina shout, If you bring down Star Wars again, I'm eating the rest of your dessert in the fridge! Worth it! He cackled, though he did grimace as his body reminded him of the abuse he had been through yesterday. The smile faded further as he remembered how he had been crushed by a Nomu mutate, and the worst wounds suffered by the other heroes that had come to help him. By the time the door opened to his floor, he was covered in a cold sweat and his vision was blurring, leaving him barely able to make it to his room and open the door so that he could fall to his hands and knees just inside the entrance. I'm okay, he told himself. It's all just memories now. I beat the Nomu, I won, it won't hurt anyone ever again, I'm safe, I'm with my friends, I'm okay. Slowly, his tremors ceased and his vision began to clarify, allowing him to make his way to the shelf where he kept his favorite movies, though he was moving a lot more slowly than he had before. I feel like I just got a 30-second version of the flu, he thought as his muscles begged for him to just lie down and rest. Ignoring the sensation, he sent a pulse of energon through his body to steady his movements just enough so that he was moving like before. As he grabbed his favorite film collection, he grimaced as he realized he was going to have to tell Mina what had just happened to him. As tempting as it was to keep it to himself, he knew that she would eventually put the pieces together on her own, and he had promised not to keep her in the dark about what was going on in his head, especially when it came to things like this. That aside, he knew that he would feel better after he had talked to her, even if the process was an uncomfortable one for him. I don't have to do this alone, he reminded himself with a shaky smile, nor do I really want to. He returned with the movies and handed them off to Togato, who eagerly picked out the 4th episode, saying that it had been ages since he watched it last. Izuku and Ochako took the opportunity to take Eri into the kitchen, where there were plenty of snacks for her to choose from. Todoroki surprised them by offering to heat up a bag of popcorn so that they didn't have to rely on the microwave, which had a tendency to leave more than a few kernels uncooked, even when the popcorn setting was used. While they were doing that, Kurai pulled Mina aside, who was clearly about to go on a rant about his excessive love of Star Wars, and told her in a hushed voice about what had happened in the elevator in his room. She quickly quieted herself and listened with a somber expression on her face until he was done explaining himself. After that, she asked him if he needed to discuss it further in a more private setting, to which he answered negatively. Let's do that later, he said before she could insist otherwise. Once Eri and Togato leave, I promise I'll talk more. I don't want to worry Ari any more than I already have after yesterday's events. Mina looked at him with a warm smile before saying, "You're a real sweetie, aren't you?" She kissed him on the nose and then added, "You remember what you told me after our beach party after the sports festival? About me being a fun mom?" Yeah." He nodded, his face coloring as he recalled the event. "What does that have to do with... You're going to be an amazing dad someday," she told him as she brought him in for a firm hug. "You've always been strong for everyone else. You don't complain about the things that have happened that are so unfair to you. You're so kind to those who need it, and the way you've looked out for Ari whenever you get the chance tells me you've got a good heart for kids. All those things are good qualities to look for in a dad, so... there." Kurai's face heated up even more, but he couldn't help but smile and nuzzle Mina's cheek with his own as he murmured, "I don't want to think about that for a long time, but it's nice to know that you think that about me. Love you, Kurai. I love you too, Mina. Thank you for helping me feel better." The rest of the morning passed by quickly while Ari was entranced by the magic of the old space fantasy adventure of Skywalker and company. When the movie ended, she asked if they could watch the next one, which Togata declined, saying that they shouldn't spend all day in front of the TV, which seemed to disappoint her. However, Kurai cheered her up by promising to lend her the movies so that she could watch them with Togata or a teacher, if she so desired. This led Mina to complain that Kurai had corrupted the little girl's taste in good cinema, but she also admitted that Ari was having fun, and that was the important part. After that, the group went outside to play softball with her, Yairozu providing a bat that was Ari's size, plus the tee and helmet to complete the getup. Kurai and Izuku used some of Kaminari's equipment to demonstrate how to play the game. Once she had the general idea, the group split up into 3-person teams with Togata and Mina acting as infielders who would catch the ball once Ari had hit it, though they would let her get to the next base by a hair each time she advanced. Kurai pitched for their team with his good arm when it was Yairozu or Izuku's turn to bat. Nobody kept score while they played, since they were too busy enjoying Ari's good mood to care about an actual competition. As the sun continued its trek across the early afternoon sky, Kurai was reminded of the long hours that he had spent practicing for his elementary school team under his father's eye, and the days when Akaruri had followed in his footsteps, leading him to spend time with his brother on the pitcher's mound. Such memories were bittersweet to him now, but the chance to make new memories did not elude him in favor of brooding on what was lost. Once Ari was tired out from playing, they went inside for some cold drinks and fruit, and before they knew it, Ari had fallen asleep on the couch. "Man, I didn't realize how into it she'd get." Togata laughed while Yairozu made a soft blanket for the girl to snuggle into. "Thanks, you guys. You made this day way more fun for her than I could have done on my own." "It was our pleasure," Yairozu replied with a smile. "We'd love to do it again sometime," Izuku added while Ochako nodded rapidly in agreement. "I don't remember the last time I enjoyed sports that much," she said cheerily. "I haven't played baseball since grade school," Kurai mused aloud. "You played?" Togata asked, looking surprised. "Yeah, my dad and I used to play catch a lot when I was little, and my brother joined a team as soon as he got into elementary school," Kurai recalled with a wistful smile. "Once I hit junior high, I started focusing more on my academics, so sports took low enough of a priority that I just stopped. It was either that or quit karate, and since I wanted to become a hero, I decided to invest my spare time in self-defense lessons." "Smart move," Togata chuckled. "What variety of karate did you study?" Yairozu asked curiously. "Okinawan Shorin-ryu," Kurai replied. "Studied for 12 years up until the month before I started attending classes at UA. And before anyone asks, I earned my 3rd degree black belt." "No wonder you're so good at fighting," Ochako commented. "I feel like I learned a lot from Gunhead, but I never thought about asking if you'd be willing to teach me a few moves too. You've taught Deku a lot, haven't you?" "Yeah, but apparently he's pretty picky about who he teaches," Mina grumbled. "I only got to 3 lessons before he quit on me." Kurai rolled his eyes before he said, "You kept laughing whenever I tried to get you to follow the forms, which got me all worked up." To the others, he said, "I told her that I could be her instructor or we could keep dating, but not both." Which was a fair trade, the pink girl admitted. "Besides, I'm a little too footloose for the moves he uses." "I promise I won't laugh if you teach me," Ochako said eagerly. "Give me a chance to try it out." Kurai mused as he pretended to eye his friend critically. "What do you think, Izuku?" "Ochako definitely learns fast, faster than I do when it comes to hand-to-hand." The brunette laughed as he put a hand on hers. "I keep telling her that she's missed her calling as a combat-type hero, but she wants to be like 13. "I just want to learn enough to surprise a villain if they try anything up close," the gravity heroine explained. "Is that okay?" Kurai pretended to mull it over for a few seconds before he grinned and said, "I can give you a trial run, sure. How about next weekend, once my wounds are totally healed up?" "Awesome," Ochako cheered. "I'll say," Togata grinned at his junior. "You're a stand-up guy, Hikari. Man, I really hope I can get back into the action with you someday." "Hey, sounds good to me," Kurai grinned back. And when that day comes, I'll be sure to stand as your equal so you don't have to take any more bullets for me. Looking forward to it, my man. Aizawa returned just as Eri was waking up from her nap, so he instructed Togata to take her home while he addressed his class. Once the child had made her goodbyes and was on her way with Togata, Class 1A's teacher gathered all of his wards in the common area to make what he claimed would be an important announcement. The principal has given me permission to use Training Ground Alpha for an extra credit test for your class, he began. This will not harm your grades should you fail, but it will be a chance for those of you doing less than exemplary to make up some lost ground. Mina and Kaminari exchanged excited looks at that piece of news, but they knew better by now than to interrupt their homeroom teacher. Aizawa then went on to say, part of the reason this will not affect your grade in a negative manner is because it will pitch you guys against each other in a way that even I consider to be a little unusual. This gave his students collective pause for a moment. Just what could he be planning that he would admit to unorthodox constraints? This test is also contingent upon your willingness to take it as a class, Aizawa told them, interrupting their silent suppositions. If even one of you decides not to take the exam, it's off. So if any of you want to let the others down, do it now. Way to make whoever wants to take it easy into the bad guy, Kurai grumbled internally. He hadn't necessarily been planning on abstaining himself, but he thought that it seemed just a little unfair to deny everyone else a chance to bolster their grades just because one or two people would rather use their free time to unwind. Then again, it was Aizawa they were dealing with. Of course he'd make it hard on them before they even got started. Can we at least know what the test is going to be before we decide? Blake asked. No, Aizawa replied blandly. You're all in or else there's no point. Following those words was a stretch of silence where everyone took turns looking at each other, waiting to see if someone else wanted to back out first before they made up their minds. However, when no one volunteered to do so, Aizawa nodded to himself before saying, All right then. Seems everyone is in. Be at the training ground tomorrow by 9, and I heavily suggest you don't be late. Done with this piece, he promptly turned around and left the class wondering what on earth they had just been volunteered into. Kurai had to visit Recovery Girl for another healing session in order to be cleared for the exercise the next morning, but he was able to meet up with the rest of his classmates at the Faux City in time for the supplemental lesson to begin. Now that he had been freed of all of his bandages, his classmates could see that his face bore a new, jagged scar that ran horizontally across his cheek about 2 inches below his eye. They would also later see that his right shoulder had been marked in a similar manner, as had the inside of his left thigh and outer right calf, plus a number of scratches on his left forearm, all thanks to the wounds he had suffered during the course of the battle with the Nomu he had defeated. I'm going to end up with more scars than regular skin if this crap keeps happening. He chuckled after Mina had finished tracing the newest blemish on his face. This led to her looking at him with sad eyes, but he hurried to reassure her that he had been joking, mostly. As it stood now, he had no limbs that did not bear some kind of permanent mark that testified to the harshness of his encounters with villains. His left shoulder and cheek bore scars from the road rash he had sustained during the end of his fight with Overhaul, and the corresponding palm had a patch of discolored skin that had come about as a result of Energon backfiring. His left leg was etched with the memory of the Shadow Nomu's claws. His right had been cut up by the debris from the building he had used to slow himself down after falling out of the sky. In spite of the fact that his right arm was now mostly metallic, the part of his bicep that was covered by the cap connecting his artificial limb to his flesh bore several surgical and self-inflicted scars. Even his torso had been marred by his being thrown through a stone fountain by the first Nomu their class had encountered, leaving him with several scratch-like marks on his back where the polished rock had torn at his flesh. All in all, it was quite evident that Kurai had thoroughly given himself over to the path of heroism, both body and soul. The sight nearly broke Mina's heart when she stopped to think about the amount of pain he had suffered to prove that fact. So she buried her sadness by choosing to hold on to him and enjoy the fact that, covered in scars or not, the boy she loved was still standing tall beside her. Aizawa arrived shortly after everyone had gathered, with All Might, Cementos, and Nezu in tow, a quartet that puzzled the class even further. Just what kind of exercise required the presence of their homeroom teacher, their hero course professor, the school's construction expert, and the principal? Let's get to it, Aizawa began, bringing everyone's attention to him directly. This exercise will pit you against one another. Nothing new, I know. He paused to allow a sinister smile to grow on his face as he added, except that it is. Today all of you will be competing to take down a single target, one of your own classmates who will play the part of a villain in a scenario devised by the principal. Whoa! Higakure blurted as the class began to stir uneasily. Are you crazy? One person against 20-plus heroes? No one can do that. It just wouldn't be possible for one person to beat everyone else, no matter who it was. Oh, I don't like where this is going, Kurai thought as he felt a stomach drop. Maybe the rest of you weaklings wouldn't stand a chance, but I'll mop the floor with all of you. Bakugo said with a vicious smile. Hey, Teach, I'm fighting all these extras. Just show me where to set up. Think again, Bakugo, Aizawa said blandly, prompting outrage from the explosive student. You'll be working with your classmates on this one. Neglecting to do so was one of the reasons why you failed your provisional exam. This test was actually put together by me in light of events that transpired 2 days ago, Nezu explained as he walked forward to stand alongside Aizawa. The truth is, we among the UA faculty have severely underestimated the capabilities of one of you, and now we need to re-examine our understanding of his true potential and what might need to be done about it. I really don't like where this is going, Kurai thought as he swallowed nervously. I'm sure you can already guess who we had in mind to play the part of the villain, All Might said as he looked at the boy with the metal arm, who shut his eyes in a slight grimace. We all believe that this test is in the best interests for everyone involved. When there was silence among the class for several seconds, Aizawa mused, I see that many of you are not feeling so confident in your team's ability to win now. You'll need to correct that line of thinking. Why? Kurai found himself asking as he opened his eyes to look at his professors. What exactly is happening right now? Am I being punished for fighting back against the Nomu instead of running away? Not at all, All Might said reassuringly. Principal Nezu meant what he said, nothing more than that. Young Hikari, the truth is that your fight the other day has raised a lot of questions about the potential of your powers, and as your teachers, it is our job to evaluate and cultivate it as best we can. You showed us that you are capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with Endeavor and Hawks, even only having just begun your hero career. There's also a potential issue where we can't afford you having There's also a potential issue where we can't afford to have you getting a swollen head, Aizawa added. I honestly hope to see you lose this battle for 2 reasons. The first being that no matter how powerful you are not invincible, and this will be a practical reminder of the fact. Clang! Kurai's metal hand shook while the rest of his body trembled as he grit his teeth angrily. You should be well aware of the fact that I am one of the last people who needs a lesson in superhuman limitations, he managed to spit out. I wear a reminder of that fact constantly. Regardless, this lesson is more for your classmates than you, Aizawa replied, ignoring the anger that Kurai was practically radiating. Shifting his gaze to the rest of the class, who were also looking more than a little disgruntled, he said, Our second reason for setting this up is to give you all a chance to prove that no matter who your opponent is, there is a way to win, especially if you are willing to cooperate with one another. In fact, I expect the rest of you to win, no excuses. Another hero is not always going to come along to save the day when you fail, so you'd best get used to the idea of working with what you've got. You've seen Midoriya and Bakugo work together to take on All Might with success. This should be no different. What's the point of a rigged test? Todoroki asked in a monotone. What are we supposed to gain from this exercise? I see how it's right, Bakugo snorted in disgust. This won't even be a challenge. Saiyaman won't last 2 minutes. Did you see how he fought that gross monster? Ruby exclaimed in protest. I think you're also forgetting who beat you in the sports festival, Kaminari snickered, causing Bakugo to grind his teeth furiously. We understand that this exercise may be uncomfortable for many of you, but we firmly believe it will be in your best interest to undertake this task, Cementos rumbled. As I'm sure Eraserhead has already informed you, this is not a mandatory assignment, so you are not obligated to participate, but we urge that you do so. You may be competing against Hikari, but it will still be a good measure of how far you've come along in comparison to one another, especially those of you that chose to do a work study last semester. That is, provided young Hikari still wants to go through with the exercise. All Might reminded everyone. There's no real point to this if he's not willing to participate. Kurai's metal arm shook for a moment before he made a conscious effort to relax his grip and ask, What's the goal? Your class has dealt with many situations in this curriculum, but only some of you have dealt with this one in the field, Aizawa responded quickly. Today's exercise will be a hostage situation. Hikari will have 10 mannequins that will represent incapacitated citizens. His aim is to escape the city with at least one of these dolls, whether that's by using them as a bartering chip to obtain safe passage out, or by sneaking past your defenses. He can also choose to kill all of the hostages, but then he has to incapacitate all of you in order to win the match, and safely make his escape. Those of you that concede or are knocked unconscious will not be allowed to participate further, and will be escorted off the field by a medical drone. The rest of you also have several ways to win, Nezu chimed in. You can get all the hostages away from his reach and disarm the bombs that he has placed on them, or defeat him in combat to ensure their safety. You can also get them out of the city, beyond the reach of his device's signal. Bear in mind that the explosive charges can be detonated at any time that he chooses, but they're also on a timer, Aizawa added. You'll have 4 hours before they blow. If either Hikari has not managed to escape or you haven't rescued all 10 hostages, then the citizens are all dead and the heroes have failed. As this is an extra credit assignment, it will not reflect poorly on your grades, Nezu reminded them, though he seemed to be looking at Aizawa when he said it. But I do hope that you will give it your best shot regardless. Kurai maintained a flat stare at his teachers throughout all this, and when it seemed that it was finally his turn to speak again, he said, About half of me wants to say no just to spite you. And the other half, Aizawa replied without blinking, it wants to blow something up, Kurai admitted. I also know that if I don't do this now, you'll find some way to trap me into it later. So fine, I'll play along. You can't be serious, Yaoyorozu gaped. Hikari, don't feel like you need to do this for our sake. I'm not, he said it firmly. I'm doing this for me because while he may not have said it outright, it'll be good to know that if my power can be contained by those around me. The way that Energon messes with my head may be less physically damaging than it used to be, but the mental repercussions could still be disastrous if I get out of control. His eyes flicked over to Izuku, and he knew the memory of their battle against Chisaki was still fresh enough for his friend to understand. I expect you to control yourself, Aizawa warned as he tugged lightly on his scarf. If I have to step in due to unnecessary roughness, it won't just be a failure on this exercise for you. Young Hikari, you will have an hour to set up the hostages in the city however you like. All Might said to head off any more potential arguments. The rest of you can warm up in Gym Gamma and talk strategy. He could tell that the students were already unhappy with the exercise, and any further confrontation could lead to the extra assignment falling apart on itself. Truth be told, he wasn't a big fan of it himself, but Nezu had insisted on its necessity, so he had complied with the decision, on the condition that he be the one to grade the students on their individual performances, not Aizawa, even if the students didn't know about it. Before the others could walk away, Kurai stopped them by saying, Hang on. Once he was sure that he had their attention in full, he added, Let's do this right, or else there's no point to it, okay? For once, take a page out of Bakugo's book, come at me like you mean it. I'll be fine, I promise. You're sure about that? Mina asked him worriedly while Bakugo snorted and stomped away. Yeah, fine, he replied with a little grin. Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Fine. With that, he moved to walk closer to the principal, likely to inquire where he would be getting the materials for the exercise. Kurai, Ida said in a reprimanding tone, only to be held back by Mina's arm and a smile on her face. Ashido? He's okay. She chuckled as she turned around and started to walk away. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be cracking jokes. Once they had moved a few meters away, however, her expression darkened a little as she muttered, Doesn't mean that I'm not pissed at Mr. Aizawa for pulling a stunt like this. If it makes you feel any better, I'm pretty sure all of us are right there with you, Ochako said with an uncharacteristic downward turn of the corners of her mouth. It's not fair that Kurai has to deal with so much more than the rest of us, and now it feels like even Mr. Aizawa is picking on him too. I wish that we at least understood Mr. Aizawa's reasoning for why he'd do something like this, Izuku added. He seems pretty cold and standoffish at first glance, but the way that he's fought against the League and defended the school from the press shows that he really cares about us. He's got to have a purpose behind this. I honestly couldn't care less if there was one or what it is. Mina scowled as she tightened her fists. Kurai doesn't deserve any of the crap that's happened to him. Forget our homeroom teacher rubbing salt in the wound. Did you consider that maybe Mr. Aizawa was telling the truth when he said this is more for our benefit than Hikari's? Blake said as she drew alongside them. When they all gave her incredulous looks, she shrugged and said, It just seems like a lot of you guys are really quick to jump to his defense when he's perfectly capable of handling himself. If we're going to do this exercise right, we need to look at him like he's our opponent, which you won't be able to do if you keep looking at him like someone to be protected. No one here is underestimating his capabilities, Todoroki said from next to the shadowy girl, but it's only natural for his friends to worry about him. It should also be natural to have faith in him, Blake countered. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be worried about him. I am too, believe it or not. But as heroes, we need to trust that our friend can do what he needs to do. You said it yourself, Hashido. He's okay to do this. So let's act like we believe that. Mina drew in a breath to argue, but then let it out in a long exhale of silence. As much as she didn't like to admit it, Blake had a good point, especially given that she was using her own words to make said point. Her first instinct was to shield Kurai from whatever harm she could prevent him from taking, but that wasn't necessarily her job, even as his girlfriend. Right now, he was asking them to come at him with their best, so it was her job to support him in that decision and see to it that this bizarre exercise yielded fruit for all of them, not just him. This is going to be a majorly weird day, she eventually sighed, causing Ochako to pat her on the back sympathetically. Most of the students chose to use the time that they had been given to warm up their bodies and quirks while a handful of their brightest minds put together a strategy to use against Kurai. This group was composed of Izuku, Ida, Yaoyorozu, Weiss, and Mina, largely because she had the best idea of his capabilities and personality. Let's start with what we know of his powers, Izuku began. I've noticed that the more chakras he's been able to keep open, the stronger his overall stamina is, in addition to the techniques that come with them. He has the most practice with his Divine Eye, the power that gives him omnidirectional sight for an indeterminate range. The drawback to it is that he can only use his power in small bursts before it starts to hurt his head. He can't move very fast while it's active, and he can only fire 1 or 2 blasts of power at a time, and not in rapid succession. His reflexes and strength are still enhanced, though, Mina reminded him. If you get too close, he'll whack you hard. Actually, his accuracy gets a major boost if he focuses hard enough, so he'd be able to snipe us if we take too long in making our approach. He wouldn't need a barrage of energy bolts in that scenario. How did he hit that Nomu into the sky the other day? Weiss asked with a slight frown. That happened too quickly for it to be his normal powers. He used something that he calls his joyous light, a power that focuses his quirk through the Swadhisthana chakra, or the part of your body and spirit that experiences happiness and pleasure, Izuku answered. With it, he becomes as fast and strong as All Might in his prime. No exaggeration. It's probably the most dangerous one he has access to, but I also doubt that he'll use it. Why not? The power drives him out of his mind if he uses it for too long, Ida replied. It would be all too easy for him to lose control and seriously harm, or even kill, someone unintentionally. He also loses his ability to produce his lasers, Izuku told them. If he slips up and tries to use them while he's in that form, his quirk backfires and does him serious harm. There's also the giving heart, but that's useless without a partner for him to work with. Mina mused as her eyes rolled upward in thought. The other one that we'll really have to be careful of is basic instinct. Is that the one that turns his body red? Yaoyorozu guessed, to which Mina nodded. When we were watching him fight the Nomu, he seemed to be able to evade any attack aimed at him, and even before he could have known that it was coming at him with normal senses. And unlike the Divine Eye and Joyous Light, his energy output isn't restricted, the pink girl told them. Fortunately for us, he can't use it for very long because it wears him out super fast. Perhaps it would be a prudent measure to try and force him to use that power then, Ida suggested thoughtfully. If we surround him with a series of attacks that are coordinated and force him to use that ability, we could wear him out before the fight really has a chance to get started. Maybe, but we'd have to send in people fast enough to avoid his countermeasures, Izuku said with a slight frown. Basic instinct doesn't just let him dodge, it allows him to fight back with a crazy amount of accuracy. Who do we have that could engage him at close quarters like that? Well, there's you and Ida, Weiss began as she began to raise fingers in tandem with each name that she brought up. Ruby could help with the long distance before closing in with her speed to assist you guys, not to mention that Blake and Yang also specialize in close combat. Kirishima would be hard for him to knock down, Mina added. Let's not forget that we have hostages to rescue, Yaoyorozu reminded them. Hikari is smart, so I doubt that he would have all of his hostages in one place. After all, even if we miss even one of them before time runs out, we fail the point of the exercise. We should divide and conquer then, Ida decided. Shni, would you mind coordinating a rescue effort with those of us that are ill-suited to matching Kurai's power? I think my abilities would be best suited for fighting Hikari, she said with a negative shake of her head. I can easily provide ranged support in addition to close combat with my rapier. I would recommend that we put Yaoyorozu and Shoji in charge of finding the hostages, since he can easily collect intelligence, and she could direct the others simultaneously with the radios we'll be using. That's a good point, Ida conceded while the vice rep nodded her agreement to the plan. Very well, we'll ask him to assist Yaoyorozu. Is there anyone else that we should think to ask to join the combat team? You should ask Todoroki along, Yaoyorozu said immediately. A weakness that I've noticed with Hikari is that he succumbs to heat and cold more easily because of his prosthetic limb, both of which Todoroki can provide. Also an excellent idea. Kachan will probably do his own thing, Izuku sighed. How are we supposed to convince him to work with us? Mina grumbled. I hate saying it, but we could definitely use his help in a fight like this. Maybe he can, even if he doesn't want to work with us, Weiss said slowly, causing everyone to look at her curiously. Seeing this, she explained, any plan that we give him will more than likely go in one ear and out the other in favor of fulfilling his own ambitions. He'll likely want to attack Hikari directly, which we can use to our collective advantage. He can engage the enemy first, and in the best possible scenario, he beats him, leaving the rest of us free to find the hostages. If not, we can at least get a look at what Kurai's own strategy is and how hard he's planning to come at us. That way, we can coordinate additional maneuvers in the field before actively engaging him. How come you're not leading Team Ruby? Mina asked, causing Weiss's face to transform into an irritated scowl. I'm not as quick to adapt to the unpredictable as Ruby is, she admitted begrudgingly. I'm also not as easy to get along with. Is there anything about Hikari that we're overlooking? She seemed to add in the last part as a not-so-subtle indicator that she wanted to change the subject. Seeing this, Izuku answered by saying, I don't know of any other ultimate moves that he has, so unless he unlocks another chakra during the fight, I think You're not totally right there, Mina interrupted, surprising the others. He did unlock another chakra a while back, but he says that he hasn't had a chance to use its power in live combat yet. When I asked him if it was hard to use, he said that it was actually pretty easy. He just couldn't think of a practical use for it yet. I'd bet my last yen that he'll find a way to use that power against us today. What does this power do? Yaoyorozu asked. Did he say which chakra it was associated with? No idea, Mina shrugged. He said he'd show it to me once he'd figured out a way to use it in a fight or a rescue, and I never asked him about it after that because we were too busy practicing coordination with Divine Eye and timing with Giving Heart. Oh, Weiss muttered. Wonderful. Now, Ida said in defense of his classmate. This is better than us not knowing about a potential fifth ability at all. We know to be on guard against any unexpected surprises this way. I get the feeling that with Kurai you can always assume that he's got some kind of surprise up his sleeve, Izuku murmured. He never fights the same way twice. I don't suppose there's a chance that he might take it easier on Mina if she went in to fight him, Yaoyorozu asked after a moment of hesitant silence. Maybe she could distract him? No way, Mina chuckled ruefully. He didn't hold back when we fought in the sports festival, and he has no issue with pulling his punches whenever he and Izuku train together. She's right, Izuku nodded. Kurai isn't the type to hold back against his friends, though he isn't mean about it like Kachan. It was worth a try, Yaoyorozu sighed. Let's table how we're going to deal with Kurai for a little while, Ida decided abruptly. First, we should find out what kind of approach the rescue teams will take through the city after we locate Kurai. Are you ready? Yes, sir. Kurai walked over to one of the windows of the building he had elected to hide in while he answered the principal via his scouter. Normally, students were given earpieces to keep in touch with their teammates and teachers, but his scouter had been approved for substitutional use during such exercises. Is it time to begin? In 2 minutes, Nezu answered. Good luck in your endeavors today. Thanks. I'll need it. Kurai muttered as he glanced at a pair of dummies that he had tied up, one close to a pillar in plain view and another to a radiator. There was actually a third one in the office closet, but he was willing to bet that if he was driven from this position, his classmates would see the first two and at least initially assume that there weren't any others. All of them were strapped with flash bombs that he could individually detonate with a remote control that he had tucked away inside his gi. The line had gone quiet, so he pulled out his sword and made sure that it was set to low power, as to only cause burns on human flesh instead of severing limbs by accident. He also made a point of examining the map of the faux city that he had been able to scan into his head device, reminding himself of where he had hidden the hostages, where certain buildings were more likely to collapse, and even some of the tunnels that ran beneath the area. Just as he was turning off the map, he heard the alarm that announced the beginning of the match. With a grim smile, he muttered, Game on, Class A. Is everyone clear on their part? Ida asked as he led the way into Training Block Alpha. Everyone but Bakugo answered an affirmative, while the blonde student growled, You idiots never told me that I had a part. Why would we? Weiss sniffed. You always go off and do your own thing, even if we try to convince you to join us. Why should this time be any difference? You got a problem with me, Ice Queen? Hey, if you really want to help, we could use some extra hands on the search and rescue, Hagakure suggested. You're super fast and good at flying around, so you'd be a great help. In your dreams, Bakugo shouted before he started to stomp off. I'll find Sandman and get that stupid detonator away from him before he knows what hit him. With that, and a few explosions, he was off, propelling himself into the air to get a better vantage point. He's so easy, Mina snickered. Does everyone else have their earpieces in? Yaoyorozu asked the class. When they once again gave a collective affirmative, she said, Good. Alert the others if you see anything suspicious, but don't engage Hikari until at least 3 people on the combat team can come to assist. Ida, Izuku, Todoroki, the girls of Team Ruby, Kirishima, Kaminari, and Mina had been selected to be on the team in charge of engaging Kurai in direct combat once they had found him. There were others that were combat experts like Tokoyami and Ojiro spread out among the rescue teams, since they didn't want to provide Kurai with easy pickings in the case of an ambush. Remember, Kurai is not invincible, however powerful he is, Ida reminded them. I'm sure that many of you feel as though he is in a league beyond our capabilities, a feeling that I share in, believe me. But with careful coordination and strength of will, we can succeed as we have against many other foes besides. So even against such odds, let's go beyond. Plus Ultra! The others cheered. Move out! With that, the class dissolved into their assigned groups and set off in pursuit of their opponent and friend.
Even if they doubt me, push me where I stand, I will say it proudly, soon you know who I am. There is something that sleeps within you, listen close. You will soon know every door that is open for you, one is closed. Soon you will know.
Honestly, this one kind of came about as like I was just kind of wondering to myself, like I think this was during the sports festival actually that I was wondering, I wonder what happened if Kurai fought all of his classmates at the same time. How would that go? And now I finally have the opportunity to answer that question more or less.
Yeah, so I
And
think,
this seemed like the best place in the story to do it.
and for me, I got so frustrated right along with everybody else. But before we jump into that, there was a little bit that happened before the announcement of the extra activity.
Yeah, how so?
Wasn't there stuff with Aerie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, like the part where he, like the part where he kind of like we kind of start seeing him like under the effects of PTSD, or like wait, what are you talking about?
What are you talking?
What are you
about?
talking about?
Doesn't he get to see Aerie and Togeda?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he ends up triggering some of his wounds when like he starts having flashbacks of his fight.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I forgot about that part.
Yeah. What were you talking
I
about?
was talking about hanging out with Aerie and Togeda.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was that kind of like happens like in the middle of that.
I didn't connect them whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
So I was trying to go back to the beginning of the chapter.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to explain like the premise of like where this arc came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was
Very
trying
fine.
to go back to the beginning before we went into the
Okay.
I don't
All right.
know what's going on.
Yeah.
What
So
are you
yeah, he's.
doing?
I mean, I would just kind of give it like this is kind of a side tangent because like I'm sure at least somebody was expecting. All right, cool. We're gonna go into Class 1A versus Class 1B, which is definitely gonna happen, and it's gonna be awesome, and I love it. But I thought it might be a good idea to kind of explain like where this little rabbit trail came from.
Cool.
So
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, beginning of the chapter, everybody's kind of catching Kurai, and I was like, oh yeah, you missed the Wild Wild Pussycats coming in. Aerie lives here now, which is cool, and he's just like, what? How did I miss all of that in one day?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh yeah, that's how I missed it all in one day. There was a lot happening yesterday.
Yeah. That was a big day. So yeah, we get to see cute little Aerie. We introduce her to Star Wars, which is just freaking the best.
Yeah, I did.
I love it.
Yeah.
And
I had a lot of fun with that whole interaction.
And then surprise trip visit from Mr. Aizawa,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
that leads us into
Well, before that, like we kind of get something that I enjoyed was getting to see the characters kind of talk about their childhoods a little bit. And like this is kind of one of the first times we see Kurai like thinking about his dad and like the things that he did as a kid without it like hurting him.
Yeah, that's right.
So that to me
We
was kind of a big
about
thing.
playing some baseball with
Yeah,
Aerie, which is
yeah.
I need to see that.
Yes. Very cute.
That's absolutely.
Yeah, I was like, where would they get the equipment? And I'm just like, oh, there's Yajirozu. And I'm just and like, I kind of remember that bit where Jiro's telling them off. She's like, stop treating Momo like a human factory. And I'm just kind of like, but plot points need to happen.
And let's be real. If you had a friend with that quirk, you'd totally take advantage. Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Dinky's always charging everyone's phones. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. What was it the other day? I told you it's like it's canon that Kaminari like has ADHD.
That's amazing.
Like there's like all like I don't remember if it was like in like part of his profile or what, but there's like all these panels from the manga like supporting the idea.
Oh, guys, so he's not dumb. He's just got a learning disability. Leave him alone.
Well, obviously he's not dumb if he got into UA.
Yeah,
like you
he's
can't be
gotta-
stupid and get into that
Okay,
school.
I hear people saying that all the time about him.
He's stupid when his quirk goes overcharged, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he's just he's
yeah, him and Mina are like
everyone hates on
19th or
Dinky too much.
they're rated like 19th and 20th on the like on the, in terms of the test
but
scores.
they're super smart.
But
It's
to
just
get
a
into
crazy
that
good
school, they had to have been smart.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
They just feel dumb in comparison to everybody else.
Which is so relatable because I've definitely been the one kid at the private school who's like a normal kid and feels super dumb because everyone else is just a freak.
Gotcha.
Anyway.
Everybody hates on Kaminari because he just has a poor choice in best friend.
Yeah. Anyway. Now
Now we can talk about the visit from Aizawa.
Goodness. All right. This is why we need to go back to having. We used to have outlines for what we were going to cover, and we stopped doing that. And now
I enjoy the chaos.
Ugh. I'm sorry, guys. You should let us know if you enjoy the chaos or if you need
structure.
I'm going to drink my coffee while he goes into this.
Okay, so yeah, so we got. Well, I mean, you were the one that wanted to get into the surprise visit from Aizawa, but yeah, Aizawa comes up and he's very Mr. Aizawa about it. He's like, I have ways to torture you, and they're completely sanctioned by the principal this time. So let's have fun. Not really.
No, so like, I think when they announced the assignment, I was just as floored and angry as the students. But I feel like the rationale. Excuse me, sorry, I just swallowed coffee grounds. The rationale made sense.
Do you need me to get you some water?
I'm good. Just keep talking.
Your water's right over there if you need it. So.
I'm pretty sure it's empty.
I mean, okay.
Okay, keep going. Keep going.
You keep going. You're the one that had thoughts on this. Like,
That's all I had to say.
That's all you had to say. Oh, okay. You were mad like all the other students were.
No, I was mad with them.
With them, okay.
I was angry at the faculty
for
because I am, as a teacher, I am so sick of teachers giving evaluations that are just don't even apply to what the kids are experiencing. But I get it. I get their rationale. Once they explained, it just seemed super unfair and way too soon. So.
Yeah, well, Mr. Aizawa, he's like, throws him in the deep end, and they're like, Dad, help me swim. I ain't no helicopter papa. Sink or swim, buddy.
Yeah, well, and in all reality, the field they're going into, there's not going to be a break. We have enough friends who've gone through, and family who've gone through police academy, gone through fire academy, and
they don't care what's going on in your personal life.
Oh, those poor guys never get a break. There's always something new and awful that they're having to go through. It's like, do the crazy stairwell 50 times yesterday and then get maced and have to do push-ups today. Man. Like, I mean, in reality, a lot of
that's part of the police training academy is like they mace you and you have to do as many push-ups as you can immediately after getting doused.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's like, oh man, and then they probably had just an insane workout the day before. So in real life scenarios, people going into these fields are
not cut any slack.
Yeah. So I guess I get it. And these are kids, but they're getting ready to go into professional field.
With this professional field, like you start work, like you can, as I understand it, you can go to university as part of a hero course, but Japan doesn't offer it. Like you have to go abroad. Like that's what All Might did. That's how he met David Shield. He went to college as part of heroics after the fact. He didn't have to do that. He could have just started his career right after high school.
Which is what most of them are going to do.
Which is what a lot of them are going to do. Yeah, yep, exactly. Yeah. Ida has it all. But some of these kids Todoroki, Ida, I'm sure there's a couple others who they have agencies waiting for them to take over when they go, or to start as a sidekick. Like they can just go straight into heroism. Hawks opened his own agency right after he finished school, which a lot of people can't do. They start out as sidekicks, but it is possible. If you have enough support and can get the funds to open up your own agency.
Yeah. So anyway, I kind of liked that they were the group, even though despite the initial shock, Kurai's able to just kind of grin and bear it and be like, all right.
It's just if we're going to do this, let's do it the right way.
I don't like it, but I'm going to do it. But then everybody
I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. But I will accept it.
And I appreciate that everyone else kind of is able to get together and start strategizing. And it's not a horrible deal. Yeah. They're just all right, and I think that I loved the way they handled Bakugo.
I had so much fun with that.
Oh man, she just
has
some great moments.
That's messed up, man. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. Oh man, no. She played him like a fiddle.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh, that was pretty great.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if she actually knew how to play a fiddle.
oh yeah.
I know I believe it's canon that she can play piano and she's very good. Obviously, she's a very good singer. But just so many classical instruments, I'm sure she would know how to play.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then I thought it was interesting that he hid one of the dummies in the same.
He had 3 dummies in the same place.
And it's all
he had 2. Well, no, there's 10 dummies in total.
Oh, okay.
But he had 3 of them in one spot. He put one of them in super plain view, and the other one he kind of hid it, and then the other one he made sure he's just they're really gonna have to be looking to find this one. But he did this because he's playing on a basic understanding of psychology that is just like, oh, we're looking for these goals, and these goals are spread throughout the city. There's already 2 of them here. They just kind of like, all right, we found these 2. Let's go move on and find the other ones.
Yeah.
They wouldn't stop. Most of them are not going to stop and think, maybe he hit another one around here.
Oh yeah, our brains
They have
very,
4 hours to search an entire city.
Yeah, and our brains are energy efficient.
Yep.
They'll
So he's playing on that.
Cool.
This is something that I've really been looking forward to for a while because, like, Kurai has a lot of strength and power, but he isn't stupid either. Like, he knows how to strategize in advance, and now he's basically controls the playing field. So we're gonna kind of get to see, like, all right, if you give him the stacked deck, how is he gonna play with it?
So I'm curious to see how everyone feels about this whole test. 'Cause
Yeah.
it took me a while to get behind it. I'm
Really?
curious to see. Yeah, because I was just like, really? I just want to move on in the story. But I get it. There can be some, and like once I got through it, I was like, okay, I get it. But
I mean, hey, I gotta have fun. I mean, I gotta have some fun here too.
oh yeah.
And to me, I was just like, what would it be like if Kurai went up against like everybody in his class? You know, I'll tell you right now, he knows that if all 23 of them came at him, he wouldn't win in a straight out fight. He knows that. So he's got to figure out how to make things work a little more to his advantage.
Yeah. There's a big difference between one insanely overpowered, slightly intelligent Nomu and a bunch of highly intelligent heroes in training. So it's, it'll be interesting to see
With
how
quirks
it
that
plays out.
put most of the rest of the country to shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not stupid. He's like Aizawa kind of called him out. He's like, well, we can't afford you getting overconfident. He's just like, did you just say that to me?
I know.
Anybody remember this thing? I'm waving my right arm, which would be Kurai's metal right arm.
That moment when you read it, I was like, ooh, my dude, your Mataris is showing. We're getting a look.
No. If his Mataris was showing, he would have just straight out started a brawl right there. Like he wouldn't even have said anything. He would have just.
I know but you can see he's getting jaded a little bit.
I mean, who wouldn't be at this point?
Yeah.
Like, but no, he
Deku,
acted with
Deku wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Deku and Tanjiro.
She suckered me into watching Demon Slayer, so I binged like 8 episodes in a row last night. So we just got to like evil Michael Jackson.
Yep.
Which I'm very confused by.
Yeah, well, you'll
my running theory right now is that like his wife and daughter like are either just as bad, if not worse, than he is.
And I'm telling them they're just human, as far as we know.
As far as we know, I'm just like Damien Dark. Anybody?
It's possible.
All right.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's about it for today.
Yep. So we'll this is it for today. I do hope you guys enjoy this chapter and the next 2 that are coming after it. If you're not enjoying it, well then it's not a super long arc, and immediately after we will be getting into Class 1A versus Class 1B. With some extra twists that I am also enjoying to look. I also look forward to seeing how you guys are. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I'm so lost right now.
I mean, we've got Team Ruby in there, so it seems like the numbers are a little uneven. So how are we gonna make that up?
Bro, you just like totally gave it away.
I mean, it's not totally given away. It's just something to think of. I mean, obviously there has to be a balance to that, but
okay.
How's the balance gonna go? I'm excited. I'm excited, man.
All right.
I enjoy this arc.
Well, thank you for all of your kind reviews and comments.
Thank you.
Appreciate you wishing us a good
vacation. Yeah.
And
So we're gonna go take that vacation now, and we'll see you guys back in a couple of weeks. Stay plus ultra until then.
have a good one.